Hey guys, and welcome to this video. So this video is going to be the start of a series of videos where I will be talking about networking fundamentals for those in cybersecurity. Now, why did I want to start this series? Well, I've worked with a lot of people in cybersecurity, people in incident response, threat hunting, threat intelligence, forensics, and so on and so on. And I've noticed that there's a lack of fundamental knowledge like networking and server infrastructure. So I like to take this opportunity to share my knowledge with everybody. And for those who are just entering cybersecurity, I believe that the networking fundamental knowledge is crucial to the success of your careers. So I would like to help you guys succeed in your careers. Now, this series of videos is going to be a very opinionated set of networking fundamental topics that I believe are relevant to cybersecurity. And I'm going to talk about a lot of the issues that exist in networking. Now, this series is not a replacement for taking a networking course. There's going to be a lot of topics that I will skip, and I'm not going to go into as much detail. If you, for example, want to be a network engineer, or if you're just curious and would like to know the details, so I recommend taking an industry course such as the CompTIA Network Plus, CCNA, or other courses from other vendors. So what is networking? Well, networking is really just an interconnection of devices. And you can see a high-level diagram on the right. And by connecting these devices, you can allow the exchange of data and services among all the devices in the connection. Just to give you a little bit of a history, early research into modern networking started in the 1950s to 1960s. And before that, a lot of networking was done through phone lines. Now, one of the earliest deployments of modern networks is called the ARPANET, and that was done in 1969. Now, we're going to get into what TCP/IP means in future videos, but TCP/IP is basically the foundation of what the internet is today. Now, once we had one deployment of a modern network, different vendors started coming up with their own implementation, and that created a lot of issues when you're trying to connect computers from multiple vendors. So that's kind of how networking started. Now, the networking process is very, very complicated. So how did all these vendors come up with their implementations of networking? Well, they use something called a networking model. And a networking model is basically the architecture of the network communication process. And it breaks down the network communication process into smaller and simpler components and defines a structure for them. Why did we create these networking models that divide the process into smaller and simpler components? Well, it is because it is easier to develop, design, and troubleshoot smaller and simpler components. You can also clearly define the functions for each component. It also allows modular components where you can prevent changes in one component affecting others and allows components to be swapped out. So for example, if you have a new component and you like to use it in place of an older one, you can just take the old component out, put in the new one, and you can use it without affecting others. These components are implemented using protocols. And a protocol is a set of rules for formatting and processing data. And why do we want protocols? Well, let's say you have two people who are trying to communicate. You have one person speaking English, one person speaking Spanish. And if they try to communicate with each other, they will not be able to understand what each other is saying. So a protocol defines a common language between two parties so that they're able to understand each other. And these are some of the common protocols that you might see at home or at work today. And we're going to talk about a lot of these protocols in future videos. There are two common networking models in use today. First is called the TCP/IP model, and second is called the OSI model. Now, in this series of videos, I'm going to focus on the OSI model. Now, the TCP/IP model tends to focus on the single protocol stack called TCP/IP. The OSI model is an open networking model. When you have an open networking model, you actually encourages different vendors to come together and implement the networking stack so that they can all communicate with each other, right? So that solves a huge problem from a historical perspective, and it encouraged interoperability among vendors. And it also allowed the standardization of components, which allowed more vendors to create products. And that created a whole ecosystem of products that we all love and use today. So that was a quick introduction to networking. In my next video, I'm going to start talking about the OSI model. Now, the OSI model is divided into smaller components called layers. And I'm going to start with a high-level overview of the OSI model and then going to deep dive into each of the layers. And then I will talk about the security issues at each layer and the protocols that fit into each layer. I'm going to make the videos bite-sized, meaning I'm going to focus on a specific layer, topic, or a specific protocol or a specific issue in each video so that it is easier for you to bookmark and refer back. And these are the references that I used to make this video. And thank you. Please like and subscribe and comment down below. So tell me about your background and what you're most excited to learn from this series of networking fundamental videos. And thank you, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.